So when we're doing these are all different ways that I can say add. Plus, added, more than, increased by. I mean, you've heard of a lot of those. Sum is one of the ones that comes up a lot, though. So if you see something that says the sum of 4 and 5, you know you're going to add those, okay? When you get down to the next section, there's even a few more here. These are all words I can use for minus. Now, sometimes with minus, I got to watch out a little bit because there's some that are special cases. Okay, this is the one that gets tricky more times than not. Because on every other one, you just take them in order. Well, when we see less than, we do the reverse of what you see. And we'll see that here in a minute with one of the examples where you can see it kind of switches the order. But again, the important thing here is knowing what the words are going to stand for. Okay. Multiplication. Times, multiply, product, okay? Twice means 2 times thrice. You don't hear that very often. Okay? That'd be 3 times something. And we just kind of allow those to be able, oh, I lost my other color, as words. Division, there's not a lot of words. It's divide and quotient, basically, are going to be the only 2 things we have. And the only other thing I'll say about division is, we know the symbol. Fractions are okay. And just writing it like that number divided by 2. Okay, that's okay too. Either one works the same. And then finally, when we get to the end, is we're going to start taking all of these words that we normally use with algebra, and we're going to start turning them into expressions or equations sometimes we can actually solve or do some math work with. So, let me bump this up a little bit. And when we're doing these, we basically just start at the beginning and work our way from left to right, just like you're reading a book or anything else. So for instance, here I'm like, all right, so we got 12. Okay, let me write down 12. 12 more than. Which symbol would I want to use? Plus. Okay, so 12 more than. And then I get to the last part. 5 times a number. Now you're like, wait a minute, a number. What number? Okay. Whenever I see the words a number, I'm just going to use X. Or if you want to use a different letter, that's fine. One of the letters of your name, that whatever you want to do. So 5 times a number. Now the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to literally like just put some random number in there. I want to keep it general, so if I have a value, I can go ahead and stick it in. But that's it. Okay, I'm done with that. It's just getting used to putting them into the expressions that way. Okay. So then, I kind of start looking at the next one, and I'm like, okay, left to right here, 6 times. Okay, so 6 times the sum of a number and 4. Now, here's where life gets interesting. Yes, okay. When I see the word sum, I look up in my list and I see up here, okay, that sum is under add. It's a plus. But that's an excellent point you just made, because you're like, well, sum, it says a number and 4, but when I'm saying 6 times it, I have to use parentheses. So here's what I'm going to have you do. Just kind of as a reminder, because sometimes we do all this stuff and then you go home later in a couple of days, you kind of forget something. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to slide back up into your chart of words here for a minute, and I want you to find the words sum and difference, and wherever they're at, just as a reminder, I want you to put parentheses around them, because whenever you see those words, sum or difference, I want you to put parentheses around the plus or the minus that you do. Because those are typically going to be times that I have to have those or something's going to be messed up. You're like, well, why is it messed up? What's the big deal if I don't put parentheses here? Because when we just got done with order of operations, remember, multiply would come before add. If I want those two to get added together first, I got to tell the calculator. I got to know that myself. So anytime I see that word, I'm just going to keep reminding myself I got to have parentheses for that. Okay? So let's see here. Again, we'll spend some time doing this, just kind of getting used to it. So 8 subtracted from 2 times a number. Anybody want to take a shot at what that would look like? Give it a shot. All right.
8 minus 2.
Okay, now let's look at this for a second. Let's see how we're doing. 8 subtracted from 2 times a number. Now there's one very slight thing we got to think about here. 8 subtracted from. Am I taking the 8 away the way that we've got it written right now? Right now I'm taking the 2x away. Okay, so what one little tiny thing can I tweak to make it work? Okay, if we switch them, you're like, again, now why do I got to switch them? 8 subtracted from, take the 8 away from 2x. Okay, so we're gonna lose this one and go here, but it was just a tiny little thing. The fact that we got the minus and the multiplying in there is good. And again, that's something over time that you just kind of get to look at. You're like, okay, I see where that would come from. I just got to read it and kind of tweak it a little. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. All right, let's check out this last one. We're going to go in pieces. The quotient. Which one of our symbols do we use with quotient? Division. Okay, there's quotient. So we know we're going to be dividing. Now what I can do is, when I have quotient, we talked about how I can write division or I can have a fraction. Okay, I'm going to write a fraction bar here for a minute. So we got the quotient of
1 minus x.
and this kind of goes like number 3 did. 1 less than a number. Now when I'm doing 1 less than a number, is that x minus 1 or 1 minus x? And it makes a difference. 1 less than a number. I want to take the 1 away. X minus 1. Okay? And is kind of like when my division bar comes in. Twice a number. What would that look like? 2x. Good. Okay. And I get my fraction and I do it. Now some of you may say, if I put x minus 1 divided by 2x, would that work? Sure it would. Because the division symbols are interchangeable. Okay, I can do them either way. And again, this is something that can even help if you get stuck on one of the ones when we get to the homework. But we're not quite there yet. We want to do some more examples here. We're not going to do every single one of the examples on the back. Don't worry. Okay. Again, we're still doing examples, notes, and again, opportunity to be able to use these when we get to a quiz. So definitely keep them. So all right, let's kind of bounce around randomly here. All right, the number z multiplied by the sum, sum of x and y. All right, number z multiplied by, I can use a dot or I can use a little x. The sum, what's sum again? Add. Add with parentheses. The sum of x and y, and I'm done. So there are a few rules I got to keep track of, but again, nothing too bad. What about, well, let's jump down to 3. The number m, okay, divided by, all right, make a fraction bar here. Oh, there's that sum word again. The sum of z plus u. So again, it's just kind of getting used to how these are going to work. Now let's see. I'm trying to look here to see what can throw us for a twist. Or if some of you see one that you're like, ooh, that one looks bad, let's do that one. I want to do 4, and then I want to kind of open it up and have you guys kind of give me a little direction here. So 4, the product of A, B, and C. What's product? Multiplication. Okay, so product means I'm multiplying all 3 of those together. Decreased by D. I think we can pretty easily figure out what decreased is going to be. Decrease, subtract, minus. We just put the minus in there and we're set. Let's see, there's gotta be one here. Gotta be. What would number 8 look like? 5 multiplied by the difference. Oh, difference. What's that gonna look like? Okay, and I can either do it as 5 and then parentheses, and since difference is minus, I can do b minus k. Or if you put the 5 on the other side, you did b minus k times 5, that'd be okay. But that's absolutely fine. Let's see. I'm going to buzz down a little ways here. Buzz down to 13. The number u subtracted from the product of r and s. Okay, let's see. Subtract we know is minus. Product we know is times. So the product of r and s we know is r times s. But the question becomes, we're subtracting u from it. So is it u minus this, or is it this minus u? U subtracted from. Where does the minus u go? Okay, yeah, it's actually going to end up being behind. And now here's what I want to do, because sometimes I know, especially when it's all just variables, it's like it's kind of hard to put a grip on things. So here's what I want you to do when you get into a situation like that. I call it making it real. So you subtract from, like, I don't know what that means, okay? I'm going to put numbers in, and then we'll kind of think about it. If I told you 6 subtracted from 8, and is it 6 minus 8 or 8 minus 6, this may make more sense than all this variable stuff. Okay. Well, if 6 is subtracted from 8, I'm taking it away from 8. This takes it away. If you think about it with a number for a minute, then it's a little easier to think about as far as our problem goes. I want u subtracted from. In other words, I want the minus u on the end, just like my 6 was. And it lets us think about that a little bit and get ourselves ready to go with that. But again, the best thing to be able to help you with this is just doing practice. So here's what I want you to do. This other sheet that looks kind of like the back sheet that we just did here is the actual homework. So now, we're labeling everything now, so I'm going to make sure I label this. This particular one is going to be in homework check number 2, which again will be next week. Okay? And this one is assignment number 2. Because we said at the beginning of class, okay, that quiz 1 preview is number 1 in the homework check. This one's going to be number 2. And that way we can keep everything in order, and when we say, ooh, it's time for homework check 2, you can just look in the corners and have everything ready to go because I want to make things easier for you whenever I can.